So today is All Saints Sunday. This is the day in the life of the Christian church where we stop and we remember that there have been those faithful members in our church that have died in the last year. We remember them and we celebrate their life and their legacy by lighting these candles. But other than that, what is All Saints? What is All Saints Day really about? And I will tell you that I grew up in the United Methodist Church. I faithfully attended. I participated in at least 19 or so of these services until I think I really began to get it. And it didn't really strike me. I didn't really have that great epiphany at an All Saints Sunday sermon or service. It actually hit me while attending a funeral. I was 20 years old. I was a young adult, and I was home for Christmas break when news broke that a retired pastor who was a former pastor of our congregation at First United Methodist Church of Alexander City had passed away. His name was Brother Leon Rayleigh. Leon had served various churches. My path in ministry has crossed with his several times. He was a former pastor at Roanoke First United Methodist Church where I was before I was here, and various other connections throughout my ministry. But Brother Leon was not ever really my pastor, but he was somebody that taught me a ton about pastoral care, because when I grew up I had pneumonia and bronchitis perpetually, almost every winter. Which means that almost every winter, if not every winter, I was in the hospital. I thought everybody went to the hospital every year, and I discovered that I was very mistaken by that in Boy Scouts, and that was a big revelation to me, because somebody said, well, I've never been to the hospital. And I was like, we all go once a year whether we need to or not. I was very surprised that I was very unique. But every time I was there, Brother Leon came, not because he was my pastor, but because in retirement, Brother Leon did not care. I don't think HIPAA laws exactly existed, or if they did, they didn't exist the same way we do now. But he had no mind for that. He had no care for whether or not you were one of his members or a United Methodist or probably even a Christian. He would, just bombard Russell Medical Center with his presence. And he would go around and he would visit people on the various floors. And I think about that now. He would be very distraught because I'm pretty sure they'd run him off now. But back then, they just let this happen. And so this man I did not know, who was a pastor, but not my pastor, would just faithfully come and see me every time I was there. We built a relationship. And I say that I learned more about pastoral care from him in those visits than I ever did reading a book in seminary and ever did from any senior pastor that I worked under. Hopefully I will do a better job for you, Trent. Maybe. So, but this saint died while I was home for Christmas break. And so I suited up, went to this funeral. It was the biggest United Methodist service I've ever seen. This entire middle section in our congregation was packed full of clergy and his family. There was people everywhere. We had this peanut gallery that went up this wall. It was packed. We were at the very top. And when we sang "Oh, for the Thousand Tongues to Sing," not only did it become my favorite hymn, I literally thought the stained glass might shake loose. There was former district superintendents. There were bishops there. You would have thought the king of Europe, the king of England had died. And it's this little, frail man with a pretty pronounced speech impediment, but a man who faithfully loved God, who faithfully loved me even though he didn't have to. And because he had died, we celebrated his presence. And one of the preachers that day, and there were multiple ones at this service, one of the pastors, I'll never forget this, said, Brother Leon is this frail, small little man, but he was never overlooked. He was never not seen. And it's because Brother Leon confidently stood on the shoulders of the ones who had come before him. And then he started naming names. He started naming names like Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Samson, and he started going through the Old Testament. Then he started going through the New Testament. Peter, James, John, and he started rattling off other names. Paul, Cyrus, all these other names. And then he started naming names of people that were United Methodist people that had helped mentor and love and teach him the faith. And he said, Leon knew he was standing on the shoulders of these faithful who had gone before him. And all of a sudden, in this one moment, it snapped into clear view for me. Not only that, but it also snapped into view that I was now one who was going to stand on his shoulders. The budding of a calling was already flourishing and alive in me at this point, and I knew one day, my ministry would be built upon the shoulders of him. Poor Leon, frail little man as he was, carrying all this weight on his shoulders. But see, I love that illustration. I love that illustration of the great cloud of witnesses, the great stand of heaven with all the saints gathered around the throne, and it's a beautiful, beautiful image. But I'm not sure it's exactly right. Because when we tell that story, when we talk about Brother Leon standing on the shoulders, yes, he was standing on shoulders, I'm standing on his shoulders, this is how it goes. But we make it seem like they're somehow watching us. And that's not exactly what the text says. The writer, the preacher of Hebrews says it this way. He says, so then, and the so then is tied to all of chapter 11. We don't have time to cover chapter 11, but it's that great list of saints in the Old Testament. It goes from Noah all the way through to the later prophets like Daniel. List them all in their accounts of faithfulness. So then, with endurance, let us also run the race as laid out in front of us, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us throw off any extra baggage, get rid of the sin that trips us up. The calling here of the great cloud is not that their eyes are focused on us, because why would they? That'd be pretty boring, and it would be somewhat of a waste. We'd probably disappoint them a lot. What is actually happening is their eyes is focused on the one that we are called to fix our eyes on. Their eyes are fixed on Jesus, but their life, their ministry, their testament on this earth of their faithfulness is gathered around us in this great cloud. We look to their faithfulness to inspire and encourage our own. We know we can throw off the sin and the stuff that tangles us up in this life because we have confidence, because we've seen people like them do it before us. Our eyes are not to be fixed on the saints. Once again, one of the things that we can often do on a day like today is focus so much on those who have passed on and who have died in the last year, we can look back. And this is not what the preacher of Hebrews says. The preacher says, keep your eyes faced forward, looking to who? Y'all not with me? Is my mic on? Who are we supposed to be looking to, church? Jesus. The one who is the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Now, the reminder here, once again, is that based on what has happened in the past, the legacy that they have left us, the shoulders that we stand on, we have work to do. And that is the calling that we are called into. He's saying, you have a race to run. Don't give up. Persevere. Press on. Know that Jesus did the same thing. He faced sin and all the hardships of this life, and he cast them off, and so it is also possible for us. And so I want to share with you about this picture here on the front of this bulletin. The picture is one of the paintings that hangs in the Candler School of Theology. There was a brand new building built right before I got there, and they had to get artwork for it, and the dean really loved the artwork of John August Swanson. And so we made him a very wealthy man, because we bought almost every one of his paintings and hung it all over the building. And this one is called The Processional. If you notice, Trent and the acolytes and I all processed in today. That's very Christian of us. That's a historic Christian practice that we do. And that is what is happening in the main center point action part of this painting. But if you look around the painting, and I know my eyes are getting weaker day by day, but if you can get a magnifying glass, you can zoom in, and every one of these little scenes, every one of these little boxes, all around the walls of this grand cathedral is a painting of a historical biblical character and a historical biblical event. You got the pulling up the fish in the boat here at the very top. I mean, you've got Samson, and you've got Daniel in the lion's den. You got David and Goliath. You've got the casting out of the Garden of Eden. You've just got every one of these pictures tells a story. And here's the thing: when we, the church, are assembled, we assemble not just with our own stories and our own deeds, but we gather with the collective works and the collective faithfulness of all of the saints. And all of that holds together. We're not here isolated individuals. We're here because of the legacy of the people who've come before us that not only assured that we would be here, but that we would be people of faith, holding on to the faith that we attest to today. And so, as we gather here, we're not just gathered here by ourselves, but we're gathered here with a collection of all of those things. And that's good, because there are days when we can barely make it through. We're holding on by a thin, thin thread. Things did not go the way we thought it should go. Things are really, really bad. And in those moments, we don't just rely on our own strength, but we rely on the faithfulness of all of the ones who've come before us and all the things that have happened before now that tell us that we can be people of faith and that we can have confidence that there is a God, that God has been faithful in the past, and because God has been faithful in the past, God will continue to be faithful in this moment. Amen? Amen. I know the time changed, but I think this is the Sunday where you should have woke up more refreshed than asleep. We need to get to communion, but I don't want us to miss the part, the beautiful story that you and I are a part of, that we're called into and inspired into, not just by what God has done in our life. You may not feel like God's done very much in your life. I guarantee He's done more than you think He has. But you can look around at the people around you, and you can testify about that. My mom used to do this, drove me crazy. She could look at all of God's faithfulness in your life and see all the things that God has done for you and be kind of mad about it. Be like, well, I mean, they just got, it's just so all good for them. They're so faithful and holy. I'm like, no, they're not. You don't get to see the other stuff. You just get to see the highlight reel. But just as much as God has showed up for them, God shows up for you. And this is the thing that we celebrate today as we light these candles. Yes, it's a little Catholic, a little historic, a little, well, once again, it's just plain out Christian. Christians have been lighting candles for things in worship since the very beginning. And so we light these candles, we name these names, because they remind us of what God has done and what God is still doing and will do in the future. Amen.